I like Pokemon Go. I think. It's a little hard to tell these days. It'd be easy to just complain because that's half of what YouTube's algorithm seems to favor. But instead, I'd like to offer some constructive feedback and a design philosophy that I think will rejuvenate the game. Pokemon Go having Pokemon has not really been a motivator for me for a long time. But what drew me into the game was that it was something fun I could do with friends, and make new ones as I did. Now, that's not so much the case. I get it. Change is unavoidable when a game has gone on as long as this one has. It's easy to chalk up a lot of people's disgruntled reactions online to just people being angry on the internet. But it would be a bad idea to outright dismiss all the feedback. So, in hopes that this somehow helps, let's give it a shot. Niantic, you need to understand you can never remove remote raids. Ever. I know remote raids are the opposite of what this game is about, and you've upped the price on the remote raid passes to discourage the use of them. And I'm sure a lot of thought went into that price change. But it needs to be said that this choice actively punishes the player. They end up feeling betrayed. I know, that sounds weird, but your game depends on your players' loyalty, and their deeply ingrained love of Pokemon is only going to carry it so far, if it hasn't already run out. You see, at the core, people play video games because it gives them control, and it gives their time meaning. Think of your game as a system with its own rules, and if the player understands and works with, they will be rewarded. Unfortunately, the current socioeconomic situation for a lot of people, they don't have that sense of control or meaning in their lives, which is something a designer could easily forget when they're busy trying to keep things going. Pokemon Go, or any game for that matter, offers the player that gratification, or at least some escapism. So they invested time and money in your game and company, and you've added neat features like remote raid passes and settled on some pandemic changes like gym interaction distances to show you're listening. That was excellent. Thank you. Removing or lessening any of those features now, though, is the same as punishing the player. You're altering the nonverbal agreement between your game and the player. Punishing a player isn't always a bad thing. Say if the player challenges a tough boss and loses. The punishment, or negative stimulus, will make the player want to abandon bad strategies and develop new tactics. The dilemma in this case, though, is that with a lot of these new changes, it's not because the player did anything wrong, but because everything else changed. You're making the player responsible for something they didn't do, and to the player, that's going to feel unfair. The more invested they are, the more they're going to feel this. Remember, they want a sense of control, and this is the opposite of that. I'm going to cut to the heart of the problem. The game is a grind now, which makes it feel like it's difficult to succeed, especially if the rules are being changed on them. It reminds players of their real-life struggles. We're getting ground up in the gears of capitalism, and your game is now a reflection of that. It's not that fun. Quality of life improvements are being made, but this is far from a solution. Pokemon Go is exhausting, frustrating, and there's no sense of community. It's becoming a series of checklists with no nuance or charm. There's barely a reason for the player to invest their time in the game anymore. So I'm going to tell you how to fix that and completely reset the tone of your game. In the world of Pokemon, a trainer can start their journey as young as 11 years old. And when they need the help, they can go to a Poké Center where the trainer receives healthcare, meals, and a bed to rest in before going on their way. The idea of a Poké Center is good and kind. It's charitable. It's a respite from the struggle of those battles and encounters. It's socialism. Your game is none of those things. You see what the answer is, right? Use the good ideas that motivate Poké Centers by adding them to your game. Just so it's completely clear, I'm going to outline how a Poké Center should work. Because if this is implemented, it has to be done right. Failing in any way will make this feel insincere and end up further insulting the player. You want people to go outside and get active, right? That is why you want Poké Centers. They already agree with your design. In all versions of the game, trainers have to go to the Poké Center to enjoy the benefits of the center's generous services. So, make the Poké Center worth their time and give them features that are indisputably valuable. I'll start us off with 4 great features. Are you ready? Poké Centers are for healing Pokemon. Getting revives can be a pain, and sometimes you just don't have enough potions. So, let players deposit at least 12 Pokemon for recovery. The main games do this instantly as much as you like, but that obviously won't work for your game. So give them the first 12 instant recoveries for free. Additional healing takes 6 hours, or can be expedited with coins or Stardust. You have to let the player use Stardust. It's essentially the game's free-to-play currency since it can be earned for most tasks, and it will increase accessibility for all players. Remember, John Hanke said this is a forever game, and there's nowhere more welcoming for a new player than the Poké Center. If a player isn't able to get back and pick up their Pokemon after 6 hours, Nurse Joy sends them right back to the trainer. For special events, Nurse Joy, Chansey, and Audino are expecting lots of trainers, so they're going to prep ahead of time to get more Pokemon instantly healed than usual. This will encourage more players to take part in events. Don't worry though, a player is going to want to come back and pick up their Pokemon, because Poké Centers will feature donation boxes. This idea not only would work, but has enormous potential because it's in existing games, like Kojima Productions' Death Stranding. Though, it'll work much better in Pokémon GO. Don't throw away those unwanted potions, berries, and balls. Drop them in the donation box so local trainers who are in a tough spot can get some help. This is a positive interaction that will build community, and if you mix in postcards or just display trainer names, will rapidly create camaraderie with generous trainers and those who use their donations. Donating trainers can at least get paid back some in Stardust, but this can easily be used to enhance existing features in the Poké Center if combined with the game's existing medal ranks. Just don't overdo it and make it feel like a grind. Maybe the more the trainer gives, the more quick heals or donation box withdrawals they can get. Nurse Joys would certainly be thankful of kind trainers who want to help others. That's a great positive feedback cycle in the game that's so sorely lacking now. There'll have to be limits on what and how much can be taken out and donated to keep things balanced and prevent greedy players from abusing this feature. But don't limit it too much. Imagine the amazement of a player who finds a few donated golden raspberries or max revives. That becomes a personal, unique experience that gives their time so much meaning. Let's keep going though, Niantic. You love research, right? In the main games, NPC trainers sometimes want to trade or share good information. For your game, that means you can pick up some high-value daily research at Poké Centers or do a simple trade. An NPC trainer wants a Gulpin for some reason? Well, you've got a 1-star Gulpin you were going to transfer away anyway. Trade it over and get a free Pokemon. Maybe something good. And a center research is done. Easy. Center research not only gives better rewards than usual Pokéstop research, but are easier than you'd expect for their rewards. You still have to complete it, but that's the benefit of putting on your sneakers and heading out to the Poké Center. You can only do 3 a day, so swing back by the Poké Center again when you can. And my final suggested feature for the Poké Center is almost as critical as Pokemon recovery. It's the trade corner. You didn't think only an NPC would trade, did you? What's the benefit of using a Poké Center's trading corner? Let's start with reduced trade costs. Add in a couple more extra special trades. Those things sound good. But what is essential is long-distance trades with lucky friends. I know, you guys probably don't like the idea of distance trades, but it is incredibly frustrating to have long-distance lucky friends with no hope of ever making the trade. This really cannot be a feature for special events. It has to be standard, as making it an event feature will make coordinating an already difficult trade even harder. Bring Campfire into the communication process if you want to make it more relevant. An increased chance at lucky Pokemon for a standard trade is a good idea for events though. Sort of like there's an increased chance for shinies during events. Get those 4 key features implemented in the Poké Center in the way that I explained, you've got a powerful hub that will strengthen the game and create a bounty of goodwill it desperately needs. Positive reinforcement is the key to fixing this game. Don't remove the pandemic perks, even if you feel they really fly in the face of your original design. But instead, reward players who are doing what you want. Whether players using the methods that were implemented but are now discouraged, or going about it the way you prefer, you should try to make them both feel appreciated. Rather than debuffing remote raid passes and making in-person exclusive raids, give a buff to players who do it in person. You want to empower your players. Make the players who appear in person feel like heavy hitters or MVPs. Someone so strong, other trainers are in awe of their efforts. Then, other trainers will be more likely to want to show up and be the hero of the hour. That's motivation. At the time of making this video, Pokemon GO has debuted Party Play. This feature allows players to form groups of up to 4 for activities and additional bonuses. At a glance, it seems to embody the positive ideas I'm suggesting. But after trying it a few times, there's unfortunately not a lot to it, and its only real benefit seems to be Party Power, which doubles the bonus of some of your charge attacks in raids. I have not had a chance to use it yet, but users on Reddit seem to be responding to it positively. It does indirectly reward players for doing in-person raids like I'm suggesting, as you have to be in person to form parties. But the other 2 features, party challenges, are not very rewarding, and seeing your friends on the map, while neat, doesn't add a lot to the gameplay. Other than the damage boosts, these aren't significant rewards that make the player feel valued. I tried to participate in the Hooper raids, and if I can be honest, it was miserable. They were hard to find, it was almost impossible to find people to play with, and the combat power was way too high. I battled him 3 times, and my stock revives has only barely begun to get back to what they were. Frankly, Elite raids are terrible, and seeing as Regieleki and Regidrago are no longer exclusive to that, I think you guys might have some data that supports what I'm saying. I also can't help but think Campfire going live not long after those Elite raids may have been a response to how that event played out. I'm only guessing though, as I said before, I don't have internal data. Campfire is a good idea and a useful tool, but it feels pretty late to the party. And not because it wasn't there during their Hoopa raids, but because it's been 7 years. The fact the player has to leave the game or navigate to a new window is a problem. Being able to see a player count for raid lobbies just by looking at the gym on the map is incredible though. I've done several on-the-fly raids because of this single feature, which in my opinion is already more useful than Campfire. I love the ability to ready up in a lobby, and once again, I'm not sure why it's only been implemented recently. So here's the big takeaway in a bullet list for anyone from Niantic if they happen to be watching this. Item 1. Accept pandemic changes as part of normal play. Reverting remote raid pass restrictions would go a long way. Item 2. Increase accessibility to offset the naturally declining player rate. Remote raids are one of the best things to happen to this game. It helps new players, people in rural areas, and those with mobility issues. Also, it means players don't have to be wealthy enough for international travel to get region-locked Pokemon. Item 3. Clearer, affable communication. Publish shiny and egg hatch rates. Your game is about community, not just between the players, but between the developer and the player. Item 4. Earn back player trust. It's not been good, and there's gotta be some faith in the game if you're even hoping to maintain your current player numbers for the next few years. Doing all the above things is half of it. The other half is easing up on things that feel exploitative. Going easier on events with high microtransaction potential and streamlining the experience so it's not so grindy is a good path to pursue. Reduce the time it takes to transfer from Pokemon to Pokemon Home. You know, as a treat. Let people really value your game as a way to get some of those much sought after Pokemon. Maybe it's unrealistic to want to relive those first few days when the game released. There was a visible spirit of cooperation and fellowship between complete strangers. But I know for certain throwing more limitations the player's way has had the opposite effect. I saw the email John Hickey sent on June 29th, 2023, and it sounds like things might be going back in the right direction. But if the intent is really to make Pokemon GO a forever game, I think my previous suggestions, especially the Pokemon Center, must be considered. I would love credit if any of my suggestions are used, and I'd be happy to see Pokemon GO become fun again. I know by virtue of suggesting the Poké Center idea, you guys might be less likely to use it. But I want this, and I'd be very willing to work it out so you guys can use it with no problem. It may not be the case with the recent layoffs, but Niantic, if you're looking to hire a designer who can work remotely and help bring in that tone change, I've got plenty more ideas. I already know the game, have a background in games testing, and been playing games for most of my life. More relevant to you guys, I think between AR and VR, AR is the one poised to take off, but I've been saying that for almost a decade, and AR can't really get ahead because of the silly VR trends. Maybe I should make a VR video soon. Fingers crossed, though, that things will get better in Pokemon Go. If you want to hear another point of view from someone who's newer to gaming, but knows a lot more about gacha mechanics than me, check out Hyasynth's channel. She intends to make a Pokemon Go video, so keep your eyes peeled there. The Poké Center donation box is her idea to start. Take care, and until next time.